Think Eden Media. They're going to be doing a live podcast for us now, so enjoy.
Love it.
Hello everyone, welcome to Spill if you're listening. We're doing our first ever live podcast with other people in the room other than myself, Shean and Jam. So I'm going to try and not let anyone's consciousness impact the conversation and try my best to do that. How are you, bro?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How's your day been?
Good day. Started in like a crazy kind of way, a cool way. So one of my close friends is about to do some work, and they've been working in this particular project and situation for a while. And unexpectedly, they woke up this morning to an email with like a pay rise. So they were just kind of ecstatic about the whole situation. And I like to celebrate with people. Like I'm a big thing about that. I think if you're going to want something good for yourself, then you need to know how to celebrate someone else's success before you can appreciate your own, or appreciate their success before you celebrate your own. I think that's kind of reciprocity and giving and receiving. But more so, it led me on a deeper level where I think, and especially in the time we're in now, sometimes we treat certain interactions like a transaction when it should be a relationship. And sometimes we treat certain interactions like a relationship when it's really transactional. And the ability to play the long game and not necessarily go with the microwavable approach because everything that's around us is kind of set up to give it to us very quickly as and when we want it. And I think that sometimes it made me sit there and go, okay, what do we sometimes miss out on because we lack the patience to wait? And sometimes what do we stay too long in because we lack the dynamisty to move? Makes sense?
What do you think recently that you stayed too long in? Where you should have moved away from?
I think for me, because so much of what we do, so we're creatives. So we love we try to be. We love the feeling of creation. So a lot of the time, if it's our baby, we'll stick with it as long as we can because you're invested in it. And a bit like what the panelist was saying before, that there are sometimes when you need to look at it ruthlessly or look at something maybe more objectively and go, does this work? Do the numbers make sense? And I think when you really look at it, it takes you to a real question of balance. Where do you find your balance? How do you find your balance? And I think sometimes if we can observe a little more, we can upgrade how we see things, how we work, and ultimately how we move.
You're stinging me in the heart because I just came out of a relationship, everyone. I just had a fresh out relationship, as I mentioned for the third time in this podcast. Doing fine.
You're like, getting there, it's cool, yeah. It's cool, claim that.
But it's that weird thing, man, where it's that thing where like, cool, so I feel like everyone knows intrinsically when your relationship has to end, right? Everyone in any relationship you've been in that's ended, you're very aware that you're at that point.
For sure.
But it's strange to me how long you can exist in that space where it's done mentally, like where someone's checked out or emotionally you're in too much pain for it to be sustainable, and you'll still maintain some, I don't know if hope's the word, but you'll still maintain the intention is if you're striving towards a better future together, even though you know it's done. You know it's done. Yeah. And I think that's true across work relationships, personal relationships, obviously. Like relationship with self, even. Yeah. Like the version of you that you are now, you can stay in that place too long, you know?
I think so. It's a tug of war between what I call being a creature of comfort and a creature of habit. You'll always, the reason you stay in something longer than what you should do is because you remember it in its first inception. How it was at its best.
Ooh, dangerous.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And then, obviously, we all lean into things that partly to do with our nature, partly to do with our environment. And you can become comforted by something that's not maybe good for you. And I think it's silly for us to believe that what we perpetrate in our professional lives isn't a derivative of what's going on within. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why sometimes your character will get you into a room, or your gift will get you into a room and your character will betray you because your nature, it just needed time to come out. So I think that if you can sometimes, it's easy to project onto a person what should have been, would have been, could have been. Starting with you, and I think, like we said, because we're creatives and we've managed to get to a place in our career where we're living a lot of what people at the beginning want to get to, you start to see it wide angle because it becomes less subjective, because how many tours can you go on? How many private jets or cars or whatever that stuff is? The experience will become normalized.
Yeah.
So then what you're really asking is, what am I looking for? What is the real exchange? Makes sense?
For reference, if anyone's unaware, Shean's a musician, an amazing musician. Shean's actually the best singer.
No, I'm
in the
not.
world,
That's
actually,
a lie.
funny
That's
enough.
such a big
It just
step. No, I
happens.
don't want that smoke. No, I'm not. I can sing well enough to hold a melody.
He'll never say it,
and
but
not get
factually,
fired.
I checked. Factually, he's the best singer in the world.
But this guy's a ridiculous actor who I'm going to say it because you would never would. There's a very big situation that Lucas, I believe, is about to walk into. Yes.
Potentially.
But here's the thing. No. Let me talk. The reason I'm saying that, real talk, because I don't want you to interrupt me. The reason why I feel like, and I think this is important to understand seasons and cycles, is that there were some things that you were prepping for in the summer, and anybody that's in the acting TV world, a lot of people doing self-tapes. And this particular this particular day, Lucas was like, I can talk between like 7 and 9. I was just like, but aren't you doing spending the whole day recording? He's like, yeah, but I need to cut off and get into character at least 3 hours before I start to do the self-tape. And then I'm just going to kind of flow off afterwards. And I was like, that level of preparation before anybody's booked anything is the reason why you're preparing yourself for consistent success. Because it's bigger than just someone saying yes.
Do you know what, though? It's really interesting. I love you saying that. Thank you. But like, it's also that sometimes sometimes that level of preparation is semi-insecurity.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because like, trying to gauge what level of right. So the opportunity is like this huge TV opportunity that comes up, right? And I want that very much. That will change my life forever. And I think, cool, if I put in X amount of hours and work into it, mathematically, the return will be the same, right? So if I like kill myself over this, I'll get the reward because I'll have earned it, which is almost like a somewhat kind of toxic belief, I think, about the level of input to output that you have to maintain to succeed in something. Because actually, I've done tapes in the past that I didn't really want, and I've turned up and just been like, done like barely learnt the lines, sort of done it as we've done it, and then got the role. And then, like, I'm really glad I got that. So in some level, like, you can almost psych yourself out of the organic process of just arriving and letting it be what you're capable of, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Thank you.
But I think in terms of what I was trying to allude to was the mentality shift.
Yeah, no, but I appreciate it. You're right. I mean, yeah.
And I do think that even when you find yourself potentially in an insecure moment, you'll do one of two things. Your insecurity will push you away from, or it will scare you into.
Yeah.
Makes sense? It's the thing in that crazy horror movie, they're chasing you and you've got the person that's just like, oh, I'm just going to stop running and just let them get me. And you got the person that's like, no, I'm dipping, bruv. And they are over the hill and far away. And it's kind of, I watched how, and that's what I was talking about, subjectivity and objectivity. Subjectivity allows you to see what's in front of you. Objectivity gives you the viewpoint of what's ahead of you.
Yeah.
So whilst you're in it and you're like, I got to get the costume and I have to do this and that, I'm watching you subjectively handle everything that's in front of you whilst I'm going, wow.
Yeah.
This is how you set the pattern for the career you want to have. It's in the moments where no one's celebrating you, no one's giving you what you want because it's coming through you first. And I also think that's how you manage the blessings that come with it, because usually that's what undoes a person. It's the comfortability when they get into that season that they stop working.
But what about you then? So like, 'cause Sean's going on tour in November?
End of October we leave.
Across Australia, right?
Yes.
How do you prep for that? Like, and I feel like I'd be...
Bare prayer. No, but can I tell you why? Can I tell you why and be super honest?
I hear it.
Because the first time I went to Australia, and I'm just going to be 100% honest with you, blew my mind.
How so?
Everything, bro. Like from the way they met us at the airport to the floor and the room I was in, like it was a different elevator and there was a lot of care. And I enjoyed it and I was in the moment, and sometimes you find yourself in a moment of celebration, and I'm very visceral with myself. So I'd have little moments like, yeah, is that you? Yeah. And I'll be like,
what, in terms of like getting gassed on it all?
A little, because the methane levels are high. So
and also, when people start handing you stuff, you start expecting to be handed shit.
But,
you know what I mean?
but do you
it's not good for you.
No, it's not good for you if you don't understand where it's coming from.
Yeah.
The reality is something that I wasn't given but I worked on got me into a space and time which now means that I'm not here to necessarily take.
Yeah.
I'm here to give again.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then when you're ready to give again, you're asking yourself, is what I'm presenting from the right intention? Intention is the prerequisite of motive. That's what allows me to then, it will seed who I come into contact with, because you attract what you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So when I was able to come home, and my dad was amazing. There was a couple of like SOS calls at 4 a.m. in the morning. Like,
From Australia?
to my dad.
Yeah, wow.
I was like, Dad. And he was like, give me a second. And
Bless him.
my ability to be able, and we all need someone we can be like super real with. You need that. You need someone that will keep you accountable, either to yourself, your vision, or what's ahead. You need it. Otherwise, I think, especially in our field, and any field that you come very successful in, it can betray you, because it's a lot of it is projection, and you need the perception in it, which means that you can see what's happening behind the curtain to keep yourself on track. Otherwise, you'll hit a corner doing 220, and that's all she wrote. But the cool thing was, I had some band friends and mates that we were able to talk to each other at certain times.
What do the SOS calls entail? Like, is it a feeling? Because I know when I'm away and working, like, if I'm alone too long, I like will neurotically spin myself into a sort of anxious spiral of like.
Oh, there was no anxiety.
Does anything exist? Does this matter? Is this important? Is my life important?
Too much pleasure.
Right.
Way too much pleasure.
Way too much pleasure.
Oh, way too much. Because we had quite a few days
Disneyland.
off.
Just,
Disneyland, on Alton Towers, on The Great Escape, on everything, just all at the same time. And I realized that I was looking through eyesight when I really needed to enact insight.
Ooh.
No, real talk.
Yeah.
Because everything looked visually amazing. But that wasn't the point.
I think that's something that really confounds people when they get to like a level of, I don't say like a level of success, but I mean like when you arrive at somewhere you've been striving to be for a long time and you get there and you're like, I don't feel any different. I don't feel fixed. I don't feel any more valuable. And that's kind of almost cliche at this point, because like that's so done out, the idea of like top of the mountain is the lonely space kind of thing. But like I have found that whenever like get a job that I really chased, not every time, but like often you just sort of sat alone in your trailer and you're like, is this better? Like, is this any different to what I was doing, you know? How do you deal with that? Or do you feel that? Am I projecting that?
No. For a lot of people, to give you a bit of background, Lucas and I, our company's 6 years old and our friendship is 10 years old. So we've got to a place where it's something we say, look, we live a lot of moments that will kind of give you that tick point on the road in advance so that you can keep it moving. Because the reality is, who wants to leave a banging party early? No one. You want to stay and enjoy the vibes. But when you know that there's something else to get to and overstaying the moment will delay your arrival for the next point, you've got to find some way to balance that. So sometimes you have to go, okay, cool. It's the motive that shapes the intention. So when I get there, I can acknowledge it. 100%. We acknowledge it. But we keep it moving because that's what momentum is. It's perpetual motion. It's your ability to stay fluid and not stop because you've reached the pinnacle. This isn't about destination. It's all about journey. And I think once we got to that point and we started to understand that it's journey and that the destination doesn't validate anything, it's who you become and what you grow in your dimensions, that's what validates you. And I think that's when we became ready for what I call sustained success. Because it stopped being about that person at school that we saw that was like, oh, you still doing music? You still acting? Yeah.
Still trying to act, yeah? Still trying to act.
Because it stops being about what other people view as success and what you view within yourself, and also what traces are you trying to leave behind for somebody else to follow.
Yeah. That's
a big thing for us.
It's kind of the perfect answer to the whole knowing when to leave the relationship dynamic as well. It's the same thing, isn't it?
100%.
On a complete segue, just harsh cut that conversation right there and then, because I forgot that's the end of that. We got sent this card game, right? But it's not an advert. We don't usually do that kind of thing. But
we should, based on what the panelists were saying before.
I realise it now. Yeah, this should be an advert. I'm so glad we should have
they were saying before. We might want to.
Yeah, 100%. Say again. 100%. With an invoice as well. Just be like, hey, we mentioned that. God bless. Black-owned business in the UK sent us this card game, right? It's a black debate card. A black debate card game where you essentially discuss black issues with black friends. And I thought it was such a cool concept, because obviously in our podcast we talk about a lot of that kind of stuff, being a mixed race person and a black person. So we're going to go through some, and if anyone wants to play along, we thought it'd be fun, seeing as there's some interaction, potentially. So, yeah.
But we were going to ask anybody with an iPhone, Alicia, I see yours on the table. What was the time limit we're giving ourselves for this?
5 minutes. I'll read the rules out. So.
Only 5 minutes on each card, because we can really get onto a tangent, and bro, this could turn into something crazy.
So basically, you just like, so the rules say, 1, pick a card and read out the question. The other person answers the question and has to back up the answer with at least one valid reason. I suppose that's like a subjective thing anyway, if it's a valid reason, but we'll see. Counter their answer. If you agree, elaborate. If you disagree, explain. The maximum debate time for each card is 5 minutes. Once 5 minutes have passed, it's time for the next person to pick a card and answer. This game is to spark healing conversation within our beautiful melanated community, respect each other's opinions, and try to find a common ground based on
Big up Bob in the
progress and
UK,
solutions.
man.
Isn't that beautiful?
I
What a cool
love
idea.
Bob in the UK.
So we're going to pull some random ones. So we've got five sick. You ready? Is it 5 minutes each, did it say?
Well, we could do 5 minutes of card. You can pull one, I can pull one. I can ask questions,
nice.
you
Okay,
can
cool.
ask
Okay. So cool. Ready?
Yeah.
When it comes to relationships,
Oh, Lord.
what concerns you the most?
Capacity. What's your capacity? There is no point in trying to put, all right, cool. If this is a pint glass and that's a normal glass, I pour that into the pint glass, we're cool. I pour the pint glass into that, we're in issues. And sometimes we go in needing more room than they have to give. And then all of a sudden you're at a deficit. Now, what are you going to do? I can't make that into a pint glass. So I'm either going to deal with the fact that I can only put half a pint in at a time and be okay with that for real, not find another space to go and reinvest that, or I'm going to respect the fact that I think I want that, but based on where I am, I'm going to leave it alone because it's going to create an imbalance that I won't be able to level out. Make sense?
What if you're the lesser glass?
If you're the lesser glass, then embrace what you are and be honest. Because that's the biggest thing that most people have problems with. You get into it and you go, I didn't see that before. Yeah, you did. But you didn't want to see it or acknowledge it. So we distract ourselves by what we do want to see. Projection and perception. So I think if there's nothing wrong with seeing the potential a person can get to or all of that good stuff, but that also has to be dealt with a large dose of realism. So I call myself an optorealist. Oh yeah, I want the best out of you and for you, but I'm going to deal with that information based on real information. Makes sense.
What does that look like? Like in a pragmatic sense of relationships? So like
asking the questions that you ask in month 4 and month 1.
Shoo.
No. Listen, let me tell you why. Because we're just going to waste time.
Clipping that. That's
Just because we're going to waste time. Time is the most precious commodity that we're in charge of. Everything else we can lose and make back and maybe even make more of. Time is the only thing you can lose and not ever make back. Why play with it? So yeah, that's my answer on that.
That's 5 minutes, right?
Yes! Come on! That means you got 7 on yours.
Do you want to pick or do you want to do?
Let me pick.
There's like 3 there. So.
Okay, cool.
I didn't realize they were like that varied. I thought they were like very specific.
Ooh. What sort of behavior is an absolute red flag for you?
A sense of ownership beyond the agreement of our relationship.
Why?
Is this within relationships still, I suppose, that context? Or is it just universally with anyone's
I
behavior?
think let's go universally.
Okay, cool.
Because that still correlates and stuff.
What behavior is different? Like, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but like entitlement, I suppose. Across every dimension.
1 million.
Anyone who feels that fits into that. Someone who feels entitled to another person's being or time or space based on a belief that. But then that comes to what you're talking about, because like in a relationship especially, I feel that God, it's complicated, isn't it? In a relationship especially, I feel like there's the agreement that you have, right? Of like, we're together now, especially if you're in a monogamous relationship. But that doesn't mean the same thing to everyone, right? And sometimes the minutiae of what that could mean individually is so wildly different that you find yourself a year into a relationship and you're like, I have no idea how I'm here, right? And So like moving forward in my life, I feel like red flag, the biggest red flag, entitlement. Someone who thinks that, I don't know though, that's too broad. I want to be more specific than that. Like,
Work your way in.
thanks, man.
It's all good.
I appreciate it.
No, it's all good.
Our podcast is usually a little bit slower paced than this as well, so it's nice. It's nice to take a minute just to be like,
People can make you feel like you got a rush, right?
But it's kind of nice that they're not. It's kind of nice that we can just sit here and be like, okay. Entitlement is the macro, but then the micro of that is like, what comes from the sentiment of that jealousy, I suppose, right? Like I'm so off-put by jealousy in myself as well. That's a red flag I find in myself. Like if I observe myself being jealous, I start to really criticize myself. Wow. And I was in an open relationship for quite a short period of time, 8 months or so, and it was a really interesting experiment, if nothing else. It was very beautiful, actually, very loving, and I don't want to diminish it saying it was an experiment, but like a very beautiful time to sort of get into and unpick jealousy as a trait that obviously we all have, and like something about someone you love. This is very personal, but here we are. Someone you love being like, oh, I slept with this person, and you're like, yeah, obviously, and that's completely within the remit of your relationship that you've agreed to. Somehow, even still, knowing you've agreed to that, still your body is like, what? Like even though you've decided that, right? It's like my rule, and your body will still betray you. Like you said, your character will be like, you fucking, what have you done?
Yeah, literally.
And so it was a really interesting experiment to sort of sit with that and be like, oh, okay, so I can like internally, biologically feel the emotional, the chemical reaction of jealousy. I don't have to intellectually agree with that or like engage in that, and I can let that pass, and we can talk about that in and you need someone who has the capacity to sort of let you childishly, selfishly be annoyed, even though you've agreed to this thing where you're sort of like, cool, so I feel annoyed that you said that, even though I know it's fine, I just still feel annoyed. And like,
but you need that space for expression, though.
Yeah, and you need to be with someone that can handle that, to be like, I understand that, look, do you want to talk about that? And you can be like, yeah, sure, thanks. And then after half an hour, that dissipates, and you're like, let's continue with our relationship in a healthy and loving way. But
what about in the workplace?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'll just like, fucking, it's the same energy. It's all these, like, okay, so on sets, right? Anyone who thinks they have any right to treat anyone in any position at a lesser level than they're at.
Yeah,
across the entire set.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen some directors, not actually many, right? Like, there's a sort of cliche about like the entertainment industry being very like harsh and cutthroat and stressful. I've actually had a really positive experience the whole time. There's been one or two situations where there's been like some nasty characters, right? And that grates on me in a way that I can't wrap my head around. Yeah. Entitlement fits all of those things. Tell me on. Oh, sweet. I mean, I'll cap it there. I'll leave it there. Entitlement. I could have answered it in one word, really, I suppose. I just felt like...
No, but I like the explanation behind it. Yeah, what's up? Go on.
Sweet.
Go on. I feel scared the way you said that.
Oh, that's deep. Okay. What lessons did your parents teach you that you now know are wrong? #unlearn.
Oh, yay.
Says that. I didn't add that in. It says that.
Okay. Now, I want to deal with this. No. Because my dad watches the podcast.
Yeah.
I want to deal with this in a real respectful way. Okay. I'm gonna give you a thesis, and then if we follow the thesis, you'll understand everything I'm saying without me having to tell you my whole life. Okay? Nature predicates culture. Culture sets standards. Standards execute protocols. I'll say that one more time. Nature predicates culture. Culture is what sets standards, and your standard execute your life protocols, work protocols, and love protocols.
Okay, yeah.
So, for a lot of our parents, there was a sense of where they need to get to. And sometimes when you're focused on where you need to get to, you maybe aren't as thorough within the why you need to get there. Okay? So you can think that success might be university, marriage, family, house, boom. Make sense? But a lot of those things are achieved within a small space within your lifetime. Then you've got all this other time. And my projection of life, love, whatever at 25 wasn't the same as 30, won't be the same at 35, won't be the same at 40, won't be the same as 45. So then you cannot make permanent decisions based off of temporary moments. Otherwise, you'll tie or attach yourself to a suit that was made for a 14-year-old and you're a 40-year-old man and you're looking hella crazy. But this is the only suit you know, not that fits, but it's the only suit you know how to wear.
Right.
So there are some things that make sense.
It's good, man. It's good.
And I think obviously because
It's a good analogy on the fly.
bro,
Isn't it? I do that, man.
but because of our community, a lot of what our parents dealt with was under duress.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like it wasn't. That's why maybe some of our punishment systems seemed a little harsher or more severe than other cultural communities.
Yeah.
Because they're playing with wider boundaries. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, interesting. What in terms of like what
Everything.
the way culture is interacting with them?
Everything. My grandmother couldn't walk home or go home by herself at certain times of night. She was a midwife.
Right. You know, my dad the other day, so
No,
within 5 minutes, my dad the other day told me a story, just like randomly out of the blue. At dinner, he was like, yeah, you know, I got jumped one time in the 70s on the way home. And I was like, you didn't mention that. And he's like, yeah, but the chapel was done, didn't it? That's what it was. And he's like, I remember getting slashed with a bottle and just like, I was bleeding out and I just sit on this bench. I went lightheaded and I was like, sorry, what? Like, if that happened to me, that would be the most traumatic moment of my life, like, hands down. And he was sort of like, yeah, and I forgot about that. And it's like, oh,
but
yeah,
we'd also be holding a vigil for you because you'd be there for all the smoke. Our generation is different.
Yeah.
There are certain things that they learned to accept because they're like, I need to survive.
Yeah.
Our manifesto is, I'm not here to survive, I'm here to thrive.
Yeah.
So we will be far more abrasive about taking what we want rather than maybe in a moment where our elders came in, they were like, I'll wait to be given. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think it's also why...
Sorry,
No.
Carry on, mate.
I also think that's why we're maybe creatives, because we want to feel the freedom to do what we want to do, and then we'll take it to market. Does that make sense?
What was going to happen is I'd argue, maybe I suppose, that like my dad's getting jumped in the 70s, our parents going through what they went through, is the reason that we have the innate sense of I'll thrive. Because they did the surviving 100%. Bit to a point that pushed the bar just enough that now it's like I haven't really felt much. Truthfully, I haven't felt loads of oppression in my life. And I'm mixed race, I'm very light skinned, so I've got that like going for me if you want.
The intrinsic investment I think that our parents gave us, because we're very blessed that our parents spoke to us. So in terms of that question, what that means to someone else, the list could be as long as my arm. For me, I really have to think, well, what was it? Because there are no points where it was so bad. I'm like, oh, I just need to... Blah, 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 blah. You're going to go through seasons and cycles. Makes sense? But when I look at it as what I call my parents' iOS update, because that's what we should be. We're our parents, but with all the bug fixes.
Some of them.
No, we have all of them. But there's some things that we can't get over ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, and I said this to you in a previous conversation. I'm like, I was able to stop feeling away about my dad on the basis that I understood, okay, if he's the iPhone 1, I'm the 14, I'm built to run at a faster rate than him. I'm built to work more efficiently than him. I'm meant to have the bug fixes. But fundamentally, in my 14 model that looks sick, it's everything that the 1 was.
Yeah.
So I think, you kind of got to just, know within yourself. We got one more card. Are we done?
Is that we done? What time are we on? Like bigger picture. Sweet. Okay, should we do one more, and then we'll just close or something. Pick anything you want, man. Because I don't know what's left in there. They're quite broad, aren't they? You could argue anyone can play this game. You don't have to be of any particular.
Let's have a look. I'm going to
subject.
I might actually ask someone in the audience.
Whoa! Does anyone want to be asked a question? Okay.
Oh no! I'm gonna give you one. I'm gonna ask you. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone want to come debate? That'd be fun. Is this on?
Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay, go.
Hey.
Come.
What are you saying, Kat?
Come on up. No, this is good.
Give me some time. My brain is just waking up right now, so.
Oh, it's so fun.
Okay.
What are you the most scared of in life?
This right now.
Okay, cool. No, let's go deeper.
Speed round.
Why?
No, can I change my answer? I'm not actually that afraid about this. It's up there for sure. What am I most afraid of in life? I'm afraid of not achieving my goals, really, I guess. Yeah, I'm afraid of like reaching an age and thinking that it's too far gone now and I don't have the chance anymore. Which I don't know if that's actually true. That's probably just bollocks, but I think you can make anything happen at any time. But especially like the industries that I kind of tapped into when I was younger, dancing as an example. Acting's a bit more, you've got more time on your hands, I guess. Yeah. But I went to a theatre school growing up, so they kind of drill into you now or never. You got to do it now. You're 11 at school, just make money. What is going on? So yeah, that is probably a big fear of me, but yeah, it definitely drives me too.
Do you think it positively impacted you or negatively impacted you?
Overall, positively. Yeah. The residue, negative, yeah.
What's the residue?
The residue is like off the back of that experience as well, comes a lot from dancing, I'd say, too. And actually a big fear about singing as well, because I was always very confident in my acting ability, but dancing comes with the caveat of conscious about your body, conscious about, how other people are perceiving you. Yeah. You're constantly looking at yourself in the mirror as well, just in the idea of like, control over your body and things. And being in such a vulnerable state with a group of like mixed, girls and boys, and everyone's just looking at you. You can imagine what comes up with that at 11 years old. So that was just like instant. But the singing one's a bit more interesting, I think, because when I was young, I thought I was a good singer, and going to that school made me realize how talented people are, especially with singing, like the actual level of it. Like, you can get some, and I'm not going to comment on the industry now, like, I'm just talking about actual, singing ability. That is, there's some people that can sing incredibly, and then being asked to do a solo in front of those people, that is very intimidating. So now it's kind of like taking away all of that, because it's not true. It's actually not. Like, you don't need to be technically the best. You don't, and that goes with anything. Like, you don't. Oh my God. Oh, this is the perfect opportunity. So, oh my God.
Light bulb. I saw the light bulb go off in our head. I
thought I was gonna have nothing to say. So that Neil Gaiman, Jack Freegard, if anyone remembers him, who opened this place, showed me this video, and while he was driving, because there was a big rainstorm, and he was taking me home, and he was like, "You need to watch this." I was like, "Okay, I'll go watch it." He was like, "No, now." I was like, "Okay." It's Neil Gaiman's university chat, and he says basically, you have to be 3 things to succeed. You have to be on time, you have to be good at what you do, and people need to like you. You don't need all 3. 2 is enough. So you can be on time, and people will like you, and they won't mind that you're not that good. Yeah. You can be not that. You can be really good.
At least you're early.
Like you, and you don't have to be on time, or you can be on time and good at your job, and people don't have to like you. So that's.
It's really interesting I'm really interested about the theatre school experience, because I often feel that too much emphasis on like a sort of mathematical goodness, like a correct standard, can really damage your like innate creative being. Because I've never trained anything really. I like learned to play piano by sitting. Yourself taught piano as well, right? Yeah, like just sort of sat and play piano. Like I think if I like went to a piano lesson and someone was like, "You're doing that wrong," it just stressed me out. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have bothered. And like, there's imperfections now. My handwork's not great and stuff, but like, I like what I play, and it seems to be going all right. So like, I sometimes wonder if you found the theatre school stuff. Well, I guess it's kind of what you're saying, but like the theatre school stuff to have like crushed in your creativity a little bit, rather than let yourself be like a wild 11-year-old being weird and like being celebrated for that.
Yeah, I definitely think I was lucky that some of my teachers allowed for that creativity. Yes. If that wasn't there, then definitely the impact would have been somewhat negative. But I had someone, as an example, this guy Bryn, who would just like, everyone would come into the class, he'd be like, "Get out, come back in as monkeys." And then like, do you know what I mean? You just do the randomest stuff like all day. And even sometimes like the scariest stuff. Like I remember one time it was like me and this guy who we aren't close at all. We didn't really have that much of a relationship. And my teacher says like, "Okay, stand up." And he's now hasn't given us any lead. He's like, basically just tells us, move like this, do this. At one point he says, "Lyndon, slam her to the ground." And then it turns out that he's actually like sexually assaulting me. And like in that moment, I know a bit harsh. I was like 15 when I did this scene. And and so in that moment when he slammed me to the ground, the class started laughing, of course, because it was kind of funny and no one really understood what was going on. And then, then in like 2 seconds, everyone shut up because I was like basically crying like on the floor because I was like trying to act as if something bad was happening.
Yeah.
And everyone went silent, and I was like, wow, this is really powerful. Like, this is really cool. So that kind of stuff, let my
for sure.
creativity flow.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great
Thank you.
work.
Thank you.
That was like way more concise an answer than I gave. I was like, I feel like entitlement is good.
I think it might be time.
I think that might be a good place to call it a day. Thank you so much for letting us be here, Qube.
Yes.
Thanks, Qube. Thank you, guys. This is Spill Podcast. If you're listening at home, you know this already, but Patreon, it's in the link somewhere. At Think Eater Media. Thank you, everyone in the room. Appreciate you. Thank you very much, mate.
Man, like
Take care.
Jules.